Billy Crudup, everyone. My name is John Wildman. I'm a film festival consultant and editor for festworks.com, and I got an email from Matthew before I headed out to here, because I'm on the narrative film jury, saying, hey, would you be interested in doing this conversation with Billy Crudup? And I was in a screening, and I almost twisted an ankle getting out of the screening, so I could go, yes, let me talk to this guy. So it's fantastic to sit here and have a chance to chat with you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for saying so.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I like to do a lot of research before I do these things. And the one thing, because I like to kind of find a through line and some kind of thing. And, you know, going over your filmography, I had this idea that, you know, back in the day, when you'd be choosing sides for kickball or whatever on the playground or whatever, it just struck me because the directors that you've worked with and the variation of roles that you have done, that you're like that guy that you go, I've got to get him on my team. I've got to get him on my team.
The utility guy?
I got to get him on my team, because if I have Billy Crudup on my team, I'm going to be okay.
I wish I had you in grammar school. It would have been a much easier transition into adulthood. I have to say that's a really great compliment to me, because what I learned about acting when I was in graduate school, and actually seeing that film, brings back so much to talk about in terms of how I began to understand about myself as a performer and what I wanted to pursue. And you know, it's a very strange thing when you're an actor to begin to have some agency and power to express yourself creatively, because all you really want is an opportunity to work. Very rarely do you get an opportunity to work on something excellent that's ambitious, and even more rarely do you get a chance to do something that's exotic in that. And I have had a wealth of opportunities in my career that I've been extraordinarily grateful for, and most of that aesthetic, I think, came from the experience that we just saw. When I was in acting school, the guy who counsels me on a vasectomy in that was my acting teacher. His name is Ron Van Loo, and he is one of the great acting teachers in America. And one of the things that he was insistent upon was that we develop our own vocabulary for ourselves as artists, and try to describe for ourselves what we want from our career, not just about what it's like to make a living, what it's like to go from check to check, whether you want to be a film actor, whether you want to work in television, whether you want to work in the theater. But what exactly can you exploit about yourself as an actor? Why would you want to be in the performing arts? If you had every opportunity, if somebody gave you the best possible case scenario where you could identify those things. And it was a little frustrating when you're in acting school, because you want somebody just to give you the answers. You're $80,000 in debt, and you're waiting to learn what the right faces are to make a living. Right. And when he instructed me to find my own best version of myself as an actor, the utility player was for sure what I came up with. I don't have a sense of myself as a creative force, as a primary force in the creative storytelling. I think of myself as a collaborator. If I find a director or a writer who has something brilliant to say with storytelling, or something that I identify with, or some ambition that I think is particularly noble or subversive or entertaining, and they can describe how I fit into that, then I feel like I really am at home. If somebody says, you know, what play do you want to do next? I don't have any idea at all. I have no interest. I don't sit at home and go, gosh, I wish I could do my Troilus and Cressida, right, or whatever other people do that are ambitious like that. I wait for things to come to me. And the woman who was one of the writers on this and the producer, and who was, from my perspective, the primary creative engine in telling this novel, turning this novel into a film, was a woman named Elizabeth Cathrall, who's a very dear friend of mine, and also somebody who I was in graduate school with, who was also taught by Ron Van Loo. There's so many people from NYU in this film that it was really exciting. I haven't seen it since it came out, so sitting back there to watch was a bit of a time capsule experience.
Well, you know, one of the things this is one of those films that has a cast that you go, you know, the movie aside, I would love to
Dennis
have
Hopper was not in my class.
I would love to have those people over for a dinner party.
That's right.
And you have a cast like this, and it's amazing. And it also goes to what I think is one of your amazing strengths, and that is to work, to whatever your process is, to work with people that come at it with different process. And like here, like if I pulled out two, I would say there had to be a vast difference between how Samantha Morton works and how Jack Black works. Right?
Yes, I can confirm that is true.
And you've got to make.
You can see many of the takes actually of Jack Black and I end up closing my eyes because, and this was not part of craft. This was the opposite of craft. This was me being so vividly entertained by what Jack was doing as an observer that I couldn't get through the scene. And this was a low-budget movie, so we only had a couple of takes. So I had to make whatever I could work. And he did this one thing when he gets the knife out and he's going to go butcher the rabbit, and he puts it up to my face and he starts doing this. And the only choice I could make as an actor was to try to save the take, because what he was doing was brilliant. I had to give up what I was doing with fuckhead, and I just turned straight forward and closed my eyes and waited for it to be over, because I couldn't look at him and engage, because I was he's so inventive and entertaining and charismatic. And you know, actually, Samantha is very similar in a lot of ways, which is she is so present and vivid, but she's gut-wrenching.
Right.
You know? And that's sort of where Fuckhead lived, is in the humanity of the people around him. So it was. It does go back to your utility player feature, which I feel very proud that you brought that up. If you want to have an opportunity as an actor, taking the shotgun approach, where you're going to take a broad shot at many different genres and characters and in any media, that's going to be your best opportunity to exploit your resources. And so whether it was theater or film, whether it was something dramatic, or, I mean, I might describe this as a kind of fable. You know, it's a magical realism. The kind of acting that I'm doing as Fuckhead is both realistic and at the same time it's heightened. There's a caricature to it because his writing is poetic, and I wouldn't have had the thought to play it like that had I not been to school and had somebody say, you must tell the story first. Forget about your acting, forget about trying to give a cool performance, tell the story. And for me, this story was one of a heightened realism, seeing the banal parts of life through the prism of somebody who has a poetic soul and somebody who has an engagement with humanity on vast ends of the spectrum. And to me, you know, that required a kind of constant joy and openness that I don't experience in life. You experience it at, you know, fits and starts. We all have magical moments, but to go from moment to moment to moment to moment like that is a kind of heightened experience. And so you have to make a choice as an actor. Do I want to play this as sort of realistic heroin addict who's encountering these different episodes in his life which may or may not end up tragic? Or do you want to look at it in the way that, for me, the book was written, which is that there was something magical in his discovery of life through this strange journey.
Right. The other thing that again, in doing my some background work on you, is that, that I'm absolutely charmed and delighted by, is your willingness to kind of look at kind of like the arc of your career to this point, and look at how kind of things kind of shook out, which I love doing for an audience, because we read about stuff, or we see things on on entertainment reporting, and we assume things. We go, must have been this way, but we can't. A lot of times we can't imagine going through some of this stuff. And so, and it's like I told you before that we can't go through all your titles because your filmography is just too tremendous. But there's some things that I'd be kind of curious to kind of help us through.
Sure.
And so if we started, like you start off with what kind of is how you came to recognition for a lot of us, Sleepers and Everyone Says I Love You. So you're starting off the bat with Barry Levinson and Woody Allen. And you're an actor coming out of school, or a little bit out of school from that point. And so, what the hell is that like? To lead off with.
Horrifying. It is. You come out of school, you're meant to be a trained professional, and all of a sudden you're in the company of people that you've admired for the last 30 years of your life, or 20 years of your life, and you freeze. I don't know how to describe the moment when I first met Barry Levinson and Robert De Niro on set, and I probably was a deer in the headlights, just doing everything I could to focus on my work, because it's ludicrous. It's as though you start working at a fast food chain, and within 6 months you're at the board meeting,
Right.
and people all of a sudden turn to you going, "What do you think, Billy?" Well, I don't know. I like flipping burgers. That was good. I didn't know. There was no transition for
Right.
me. It's a very strange thing as an actor, because all of a sudden, not only do you have to participate and to the best of your abilities, but then you have another set of responsibilities, which is to talk about it to people, because people then become interested in what you thought. And since you probably weren't thinking anything like me other than to get a frickin' job, developing a philosophy and an aesthetic in front of people in a public discourse was a very strange experience, and one that I wasn't prepared for. In addition to that, I've got all my friends from acting school who aren't getting any jobs at all, who aren't getting agents. I'm watching the normal course of actors, right. And you're so incredibly grateful and gratified by that, and kind of embarrassed too.
Right.
It was a very strange and exotic experience, and I was grateful to those for those moments, because it was a bit of a crash course. I had to land on my feet.
Well, and listen, and I want to get into the meditation thing, which kind of comes later, as far as that. But I was curious when I was thinking about you landing on the set for these jobs, and whether or not you're like going, all I have to do is just say my line and look at the guy in the eye and do that, and they won't figure out their mistake.
Well, exactly. They won't discover that I'm a fraud,
right,
which is what every actor thinks all the time. Yeah, for sure. And there is a part of that. I mean, I was doing a film with William H. Macy maybe 5 years ago or so.
Rudderless.
Rudderless, it's called. Yes. Thank you. And for the rest of you, see it. It's a very interesting movie.
Yes.
Bill Macy is, it's a very ambitious piece of work, and it was Bill's first movie, but he's, such an extraordinary actor and somebody I've looked up to for so long that it was a privileged experience. But there was a scene in it where my character has to confront the death of a child in an awkward way.
Right.
And the way that the structure of the story is, you want something cathartic for this character who's been keeping everything close to the vest at this point. And so I'm reading it knowing there's a mandate for some kind of emotional release, whatever it is. And I had to go to promote a different movie in Cannes the day before. They interrupted the shooting so I could go to Cannes, and we were shooting in Oklahoma. And I came back the next day, and there's no excuses. I should have been able to do it, but I didn't feel like I had all of my resources.
Because that's a 20-hour flight.
When those scenes come up anyway, you're already a bit in your head.
Right.
You know that you need to, you want the opportunity to render the most powerful version of your storytelling in that as the character. You know that opportunity is rare to do that, and you know that if you're effective, it will produce a result for the people who are watching it. And so you don't want to squander that opportunity. That's where a lot of the responsibility comes from. It's not just like, oh, I don't want to crap myself, or I did that bad. It's that you know that the story is structured in a way that this is important. If the work is going to be effective, it will be because of moments like this. And so, needless to say, all of this is going into my head, and I walked up to the my mark, and I've learned over time that if I wait long enough and I have the right intention and I make myself present in the moment, that I will be affected in some way, whether it's the way that I have, devised, or whether it's the way the director devised or the writer devised. Maybe not. But something will happen that hopefully I think will be connected to the story and the character. And nothing was happening again and again and again. And again, this is a low-budget movie. We only had a certain number of takes, and at a certain point, Bill comes up to me and goes, hey, sorry. Hey, so you're going to need to fake it. And that's kind of how I felt at the beginning of my career with Sleepers, which is you have all this stuff going on in your head, all the things that you want to do with this character. Tommy Marcano, I think was his name in Sleepers, and like the destitution of these young men who had been abused as children and have found themselves in an impossible circumstance in their adult life. You want to do all that, and you get to the moment, and they're giving you a close-up, and Barry Levinson looks at you, and he's like, and all you can do is think, oh my God, what am I doing here? How did I find it? There's nothing about Tommy Marcano going on in my head. And that's the point at which you have to fake it. Right. And the training has really been a crucial part for me in making it through moments like that, which appear again and again throughout your career. But if you can navigate those, then you can find the agency and the power on the other side to do what you intend to do. Right. They don't come up all the time.
Right.
But certainly at the beginning of my career, when I was, it actually helped to have people like Dustin Hoffman, who was our defense attorney, and Ron Eldard and I in Sleepers. He was our defense attorney, and he spent most of the day blowing spit bubbles at us, and that kind of helped, I have to say, in a way. It didn't help that he was on a garlic and onion diet, but it did help that he was undermining the preciousness of all of it, because as a young actor, that's something you're worried about.
Well, yeah. and he's a guy also that formulated this idea that he carried as a through line throughout his career, that he was like going, well, every character I play, you have to absolutely hate him at the very beginning, and then I have to win the audience back over the course of the film.
And it was going to be somebody completely different than who he was. It was going to be transformational from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, he was definitely a model for me in terms of the anti-hero and what it means to try to create these characters who typically would be the antagonist in a story, and find some way for the audience to have warmth, affection, even if it's reluctant association with them, because that's something that I think I've experienced in my life, is just the duplicity of human nature, how we want something so much for ourselves, and how we want so much something for our lives, and we want the expression of our adult lives to be something so heroic, and it's often so much less than that,
Right.
And living with that is to me actually a heroic act. You know, that to me is a humane way of looking at the world.
Well, there's a very cool quote about you from your director from Jackie, Pablo Larraín. Said that your the characters you play are not somebody you like, but someone you can come to agree with.
Okay, I'll take that. There's no question when you get the chance to play different characters. Listen, I had two brothers growing up, and one is a year and a half older, one is 3 years younger, and we were competitive as all hell. So there's a part of me that is very competitive, and what I'm competitive at is trying to use every bit of my resources to tell stories and play characters, and that means doing things that are very uncomfortable for me. There's a couple of characters that I bet I could play again and again in a reasonable way and have a mediocre career and make money, which a mediocre career as an actor is like winning the lottery to begin with. Right. 85% of the Screen Actors Guild is unemployed year-round. So it's a very difficult way to make a living. So any living you make, you should be proud of if you're an actor. However, if you do get the opportunity to do badass stuff and you don't take it, then
yeah,
I won't use the gesture in front of such a. So my feeling was when people were giving me opportunities to do complicated, hard stuff, I better take it, even if I suck at it or even if I make mistakes. It's going to allow me to grow.
Right.
And
well, that fear generates.
No question about it. And some of the most complicated characters, some of the most deliberate high wire acts I've taken have been people that are unlikable in any frame of reference. And my entire intention in telling the story is to just give one moment where you get a glimpse of their humanity that allows you to second guess judging somebody for being two-dimensional,
right?
Because we all have, you know, the richness of humanity in us, and the end.
Sorry. Well, then, all right. So then, you jump start with those two amazing directors and those films, and then a year later, you already have an above the title thing with Adrian Shelley, the great Adrian Shelley, in Grind, and Inventing the Abbots.
Yep.
Which Inventing the Abbots was almost like it was like a farm club film for awesome actors that were going to come out of that with what Joaquin Phoenix is in it, Liv Tyler, Jennifer Connelly, you know, and
Joanna Going,
and you, and you know, and so you're all there, like, and again, you know, when you're like when you're looking on the outside for the career, you're like, oh, holy crap, you're teed up, you are on the thing. But are you thinking that? Do you have at that point? Do you have the presence of mind to go, oh, I see what's going on here?
Well, I have a little bit of a contrarian streak in me too, and I grew up going to see plays. My mom would bring me to New York to see shows that were on Broadway, and anything from Fences to Brighton Beach Memoirs to what was that roller skating musical? It'll come to me.
Starlight Express. Starlight Express.
Exactly. So a very broad spectrum there. But I developed a great affection for the theater, and I was getting some pretty spectacular opportunities in the theater. And again, if somebody gives you a good part and you're an actor, I don't care where it is, don't turn it down, man. You know, like that. So when I was doing some movies and I was still getting great parts in the theater, there were people who said, "What's wrong with you? You know, what? How could you possibly do a play right now when you've got a movie coming out?" And that movie, you know, the truth is, you do get a lot of opportunities if you don't screw up terribly early on. Particularly if you're a white man, you get a lot. That's where most of the parts are written for.
Right.
And so there was a lot of opportunities for me that I wasn't interested in because I had other opportunities that came to me through the theater or doing smaller films like Jesus' Son. There was any number of things that I turned down to do that. And so I didn't feel that responsibility. I felt like I had won the lottery with all of these jobs. That was somebody else's point of view from my perspective, that I was making like poor business decisions. You know, I was trying to look at the long road. I wanted to be able to look back at my career and know that at least if all of the movies or plays sucked, that my intention going into them was try to do something rad.
And your agent is pulling his or her hair out.
Well, I talk like this all the time, so they got the news pretty quick. And I've worked with the same people my entire career, so they kind of know what I'm up to, and they give me a long leash. I don't know why, but.
All right, so then, and this is something, again, we have a rare perspective because we have somebody without limits, playing Steve Prefontaine, and there were two competing films.
Yes. Jared Leto was doing.
Leto was doing Prefontaine. You've got Without Limits, and it's one of those situations where we read about like the studios. They're racing through production. They're trying to beat each other. They're trying to, but you're involved in it. It's one of those projects is you and your thing. So, what is that like? Do you get involved in the horse race aspect of it, or do you like what's it like?
I confess I didn't find out about it until I arrived in Oregon for the first day of rehearsal. And I was at the Oregon track watching a meet, and somebody came up and said, "So which pre-movie is this?" And I said, "What?" They said, "Which pre-movie is this?" I said, "Well, it's the pre-movie." And they were like, "Well, I know, but is it the one with Jared Leto or the other guy?" And I said, "It's the other guy. I'm in the other guy, and I'm the other guy." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And so I didn't know how to process that exactly. Needless to say, I went and talked to the director about it immediately. And it turns out that there was this group of people, 3 or 4 people, who had been working together for any number of years to try to tell the story of Steve Prefontaine, who was a really interesting athlete who sort of was at the forefront of what we now take for granted, which is selling products by way of athletic achievement. This is not something that was really done before Steve Prefontaine and Nike. He was their first endorser, and the first one to wear the shoes. And so to me, it was a really interesting character to study, not just because he was such an extraordinary athlete and kind of a brash, outspoken person who defied all of the collegiate unions, who essentially he was saying, "Listen, we're the ones out there who are busting our ass, and you guys are taking the money." And he was one of the first ones to speak up for the amateur athletes. But so there were this group of people who wanted to tell the story, and I guess somewhere there was a discrepancy about how they wanted to tell the story. So they sort of parted ways. And they developed it on their own for a number of years. And then one of the teams, and there's a little bit of controversy about which one was first, got financing. At which point the other team was like, "We need financing too immediately," because whoever gets the story out there first is going to have like ownership over the way it's told. So consequently, there was literally a race about the racer to get it out there first. I decided as soon as I heard about this that there's not a whole lot that I could do about that. I have my hands full playing that guy, and they run really fast. They're like those. They're middle distance runners. So you think if they're running 5 miles or 10 miles or 3 miles or whatever, that they're going to let up. They're running at 4-minute mile pace. I mean, they're running. That's like a sprint to all of us. And I was not a runner. I was a very mediocre wrestler in high school, but I was not a runner. And so to learn how to do that was Also, he was a great runner. He wasn't just a crappy runner. If he was a crappy runner, I'd have been great. But so I had my hands full as it was, and I actually never even saw the other production. But I've run into Jared many times, and we laugh about it.
Right.
But yeah, it was a pretty exotic experience. Tom Cruise was one of the producers on that. So occasionally I'd get a call from Tom Cruise who was there to cheer me up and say, hey, keep at it. You're going to be great. Billy, are you listening to me? You are going to be great. And I'd be like, God damn right I am, Tom. Okay, man, I feel a lot better. Roll camera, and he'd come flying in on his biplane or something and buzz the field where we were shooting, and it was extraordinary. And Donald Sutherland, again, it was strange. The character was really arrogant, and I think I had to. I mean, I'm sure I have plenty of that in me anyway, but I had to channel a lot of that to feel like I could actually do the job that they were asking me to do. Because to be a lead in a movie that was written and directed by Robert Towne, who did Chinatown, wrote Chinatown, being produced by Tom Cruise, felt like a lot of pressure. So I had to kind of stick my chest out and be like, I know how to do this, and the phone calls from Tom helped a lot.
Let's talk really quickly about a technical aspect of acting, because I'm reminded of a story Simon Pegg tells about a scene in one of the Star Trek films where he has to run at breakneck speed across a hangar and do something, and he does it and just and he's so proud of himself that he's just run as hard as he could and does it, and they go, that was great, let's do it again, and he's about to die because he didn't count on that. Did you have any of those kind of moments early on? Did you make any of those early?
To my great good fortune, a woman named Patricia Donnelly, who was a hurdler in the 1976 Olympics, I believe. She did a running film with Robert Towne called Personal Best.
Right.
And so as someone who was an Olympic athlete and as somebody who had worked on a film about athletics, she knew the pitfalls. So she was like, we are never, ever running a mile, okay? It's only gonna be interval training. And of course, I was kind of chomping at the bit at that point. I'd been training for a long time. I wanted to see what my own personal best was, and she was like, no, you don't get to do that. You get to run in intervals, that's it. Because the way that we're gonna set this up is when they do a long sequence, we're only gonna shoot one part of the track at a time. So you'll run 200 meters, then you'll do it again, then you'll do it again, then you'll do it again, then we'll have an hour setup to change the cameras around where everybody else will cool down, you'll stay warm, and then we'll do that again. If you start training to you're gonna run the whole time, you'll never make it through.
Right.
So she was really, really smart about how she helped me navigate that stuff. And Conrad Hall, who is just a legendary cinematographer, Connie Hall, just one of the most brilliant I wanted to kill. Because he decided on that one he was going to develop some new technology so that he and Robert could get the running shots that they wanted. And what it was is they were using lasers for the first time to try to calibrate the distance to the object that that was going to be in focus. It's now a very common practice, but we were doing it shooting at in slow-mo, which means the depth of field is very narrow. So instead of you being in focus, for this part, you're only in focus this much. So if I move out of it this far, I'm not going to be in focus. So if you're starting from way back in that room and you're running over a hill and the guy with the focus is trying to keep his eye on you and you only have this room for error, you're going to be doing that a lot. And so he was trying to develop this technology so that they could shorten that process. In fact, it ended up lengthening it because they were trying to figure out how the technology worked exactly. But in the end, the product is well worth it. But that's when I worked the hardest, was trying to was working through Connie's figuring out of the new technology. Yeah.
Thanks, Conrad. Okay, Almost Famous. We obviously have to talk about Almost
Sure.
Famous. But it's also one of the things that you've had to talk about this film ad nauseum, as you should, because it's a damn great movie and a great role.
Not hard for me. I was thrilled to be a part of it, man.
Well, here's my question for you. All right, so you do this role. You work with Cameron Crowe. You're literally playing a role where you literally do declare yourself to be a golden god. This movie, and there's a lot of anticipation for this movie to come out. This is a moment when when a movie like this makes its premiere, there is just a lot of excitement and hoopla and fanfare, and I would love to hear from your perspective what that moment was like for you when you're at that premiere, and and the reviews haven't quite hit yet. Maybe Hollywood Reporter, maybe Variety, maybe, but probably not at that point.
I don't remember any of the reviews.
Well, you land on a red carpet before the premiere. What is that moment like for you? What was that like for you?
Well, I was kind of a dick about it. Sorry. I didn't want to play heroes. I didn't want to play romantic leads. I didn't want to be, well, for lack of a better word, trapped in and not that I didn't want to play heroic people, but Russell was an anomaly. He was like a bona fide rock star who had mystery and sexuality, and people were supposed to pine for him and follow him and stuff. And that's not all the characters I wanted to play. And I could tell through the publicity and my agents and stuff that they certainly were drawn by that feature of it. So I kind of made the choice that I was going to deflect all of that. And so I got my hair cut and shaved, and I wore corduroys and a white shirt to the premiere, and kind of downplayed all of that as far as I could. I wanted the character to exist in and of itself, and I wanted to do my own thing. And I think it may have been just after that I did Elephant Man on Broadway,
right.
Which it was a bit of a departure from Russell. And so I think there was a calculated part on my behalf to not follow to not follow Russell. People were going to follow Russell, but I didn't want to follow him.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but for me, I wanted the opportunity to play a wide range of characters, and you see it in actors all the time, where they make their money in things that have been popular, and what ends up happening is you whittle away at your craft so that you only start to know how to do one kind of thing. You do it very well, and you make your living at it, and I'm sure you have houses all over the place and are super happy. But what I was more interested in was testing the limits of what I could do,
right.
or the potential of what I could do.
But this is something we actually touched base on when we met today, about the fact that you do have to promote. And an actor does have to go on red carpets and do junkets and interviews and things like this. And this is not your favorite thing to do. And you've talked about that in a few different interviews that I read. And one of the things that I do that I'm kind of noted for is running red carpets. I'm the guy at the front of the red carpet telling people where to look at cameras, right. and doing that kind of thing. And I often say that to people that fight that, actors and actresses, I go, something, if you just do what I tell you and go through, this thing is over in 20 minutes, and you're back in the green room.
I wish you had been there early in my career. You would have saved me and my publicist a lot of gray hairs.
Well, and I go, it's like, I remember one time I was at New York Film Festival, And Robert Redford arrives on the carpet, and he leans into me, and he goes, "This is a quick one, right?" And I'm looking down at 70 photographers, and, and I go, "Yeah, Bob, this one's going to be fast."
It's never a quick one for him.
This one's going to be fast, right? But that's the thing is that you've obviously you have over the course of your career had to kind of come to terms with that, had to play with it, because the reality is that you do have to. That is part of it. And I would love for you to talk about that, because again, this is something that we go, well, yeah, I see you on Jimmy Fallon, or I see you on whatever, and then or I see you on the red carpet at Oscars or what have you, but it's not a natural thing.
Well, there certainly wasn't a class at it at school, and so it was a little bit confusing for me. One of my favorite quotes is from The Simpsons, where Homer, he had to get really highbrow here, Homer gets a job as an assistant for Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, and he discovers at a certain point that he can sell salacious details of their life to a tabloid, and so they sue him and they take him to court, and naturally he defends himself, and in his defense he says, "Your Honor, I'm no big city attorney, but if these people didn't want others accusing them of being homosexuals or going through their garbage, they should have never tried to express themselves creatively." And that got it to me at the heart of this complicated relationship with press. Ultimately, all the press is a way for the film companies to not pay for advertising. And the way that they leverage that is by exploiting the personal lives of the people who are in the films. And listen, that's been entertaining for a long time. But what I kind of felt like was, how much will you pay me just for the acting? I'll come in on time. I'll do my job. I promise I'll do a pretty good job. It won't be terrible. It might not be great, but I won't be drunk on set most of the time. And they're like, "Zero. We won't pay you anything for that." This is a part of what is now the fabric of filmmaking in particular. And obviously, any portion of the entertainment, I arrived on the scene as all of this exploded in a whole new way.
Right.
The internet and the different avenues of exploiting entertainment stories and getting the word out just expanded in a whole new way. And I always thought that sharing aspects of my personal life was anathema to what I was trying to do, because all I really want you to do is for one night think that that's the only part that I can play. That guy, Billy Crudup or Crudup or whatever his name is, can only play fuckhead, because that's obviously him. The more you know about me, the less you're gonna believe that. I mean, unfortunately, like now you guys hear me talk and next thing you're gonna see is like, oh, he talked, so it's gonna be hard for me to play the strong silent type. But that's really what I thought my job was. So it seemed ridiculous to try to do interviews with people or have like photographers follow me around or come into my home and take pictures of my home, or go on a dinner date with me and my girlfriend. I was like, what are you guys talking about? I promise I will do an okay job if you just let me act. But if you start trying to it's going to be harder for me to do a good job the more people know about me.
Right.
Because I like to play a lot of different kinds of parts, and I feel like that is a virtue of mine, is the ability to, transform a little bit. And so that was part of it, was because I was being petulant at the film companies for exploiting actors. And at the same time, I thought it was probably not great for my career.
But now is that different? Do you have a different attitude about it? Like
I do.
On indie films or smaller films?
Well, for sure. I mean, the fact of the matter is that was at the beginning of my career when I was worried about being typecast. And, if you look a certain way, they're going to want certain things. They're going to want certain parts for you. So you're only going to get offered certain things. Your agents, they're not going to tell you everything that comes to you if they think it's something you're going to take and they're not going to make money for it.
Right.
that's just a feature of that business partnership. I mean, fortunately, I've now built up a long history and trust with the people that I work with where that's not a danger. But at the beginning of your career, it is something to look out for, and I was aware of that. And so that portion of my career, it has passed. And fortunately, I've been able to play a lot of different kinds of parts, and I feel like there is still the opportunity for me to pull the wool over the eyes of the audience enough to, I don't have to be so protective, and
right.
I can get out there and sell.
Right. But
Alien Covenant coming out. I almost forgot.
That's right, that's right. Oh, we're going to get to that one. Trust me. But
Terrible
also,
selling.
especially now, where we are at a point where literally even studios. I don't know if you guys noticed. I don't know if this happened in the theaters that you've noticed here, but studios will actually have someone like yourself sit down and go, "Thank you for actually coming to the theater to come see this movie."
Oh yeah.
And they're like literally thanking us for actually buying a ticket and going to a theater rather than just sitting at home and watching it online. Which for an independent film like say the one I made, well you're used to what we call eventizing. Like we got to go and do Q&As at this city and this city and this city.
Right.
We've got to create some kind of hoopla and fanfare. Hey, look at us kind of thing. But now even studio films are now like obviously going. People aren't coming
No
as much
question about it.
as well. And so, again, you obviously have a great awareness of shit that's going on around you.
Yep.
So now do you, aside from just
I'll be on a 5-day press tour in London for Alien, and then
Yep.
4 days in LA. I'll be on Jimmy Kimmel and James Corden, Good Morning America. So I'm aware of the climate, and I'm also extremely grateful for the career, that I've been able to have. And I want to continue to be able to support the people who make movies, whether they're huge budget movies like Alien or low budget movies like Jesus' Son. So if I can help and people are interested in having me around, I'm all for it now.
Right. Okay, let's get back to movies. Big Fish.
Yes.
Big Fish, I watched that movie and I go, you're the glue guy. You are the glue guy in that movie. And I watch it and I go, Billy kind of missed out on some of the fun that Ewan McGregor had.
That's what I said when I said, they want me to play that part? Everybody else, look at what Danny DeVito gets to do. Come on, can I play the tall guy? No, I felt very similarly. And but then, it occurred to me that that kind of fit into what I was interested in, which is you have this he could be the antagonist, he's nagging his dad, come on dad, be truthful. And meanwhile his dad is telling these magical stories that's charming the entire audience.
And
because
it is Albert Finney.
His story, it's Albert Finney, and it's Ewan McGregor as him as who is not in love with Ewan McGregor. And all of the people that he encounters, it's beatific. I want to be in that world. And so then, they come back to me and it's like, wah, wah. There's the nagging son. Dad, come on, tell the truth. And so, part of me, I had a dad who was, he had a fantastical way of seeing the world too. And I had that relationship with him, which was, I was like, I understand that you see your life through a sort of charmed lens, but for me, it was a little bit different. So I'd love for us to kind of collaborate on the truth. Is there somewhere we can meet in the middle? And my dad was sort of similar to the character in Big Fish. So my mandate with Tim was at least give him some opportunity for people to feel for his plight. And he did in that last scene where he gets to kind of align himself with his dad and forgive his dad and charm him with his own story of his own death. And so for me, it was a great and very lucky experience.
All right, so I want to get everybody else involved here because I know everybody's been going, oh, I got questions. So I'm going to ask you one more before I get to here. And that's about Watchmen.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
For Watchmen, what I'm curious about is when you have an author of a piece that is strongly opinionated and is strongly protective of something. We're not even talking about the fans,
Sure.
But just the creator, and that brings a whole different kind of pressure on you as a performer. And can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I guess the truth is I feel enough pressure in trying to render an interesting character that I can't really handle much more pressure. So I don't include myself in the fights for the people who already feel like they have ownership over the comic and they want it a certain way, or the original author of the graphic novel who wants it a certain way. If I agree to do it, the entire pressure for me is going to be on, have I done the best job I can telling this story with this character? And so there was a lot of pressure to play Dr. Manhattan, because how the hell do you play that guy? He's not a guy. But he also is a guy. There was a lot to think about. So the pressure with Zach in trying to find a way to discover where the humanity was in somebody who had transcended human intelligence, that was pressure enough. Needless to say, as somebody, as you can probably tell, I do have, I like the subversive part of storytelling and trying to undermine some of the caricatures we have, and no better target than superhero movies. And this one for me was a great attack on the modern idea of mythology. And so, like, we have all of these superheroes. So what is this thing? Why do we need superheroes? What is our investment, our cultural investment in people who dress up and solve our problems and have supernatural powers or a lot of money or whatever it is? And so what Watchmen does is, I think it says, okay, so here's what my opinion of somebody who puts on a costume to go out to be a crime fighter would actually be. And they're nutcases. That's the real, they're absolutely insane psychotics, most of them. And the one that does get superpowers couldn't give a rat's ass about people. He wants to be on Mars and contemplate, like, the interstellar travel and what it's like, to watch atoms collide. That to me, I thought was so fascinating. It was a real poke at our investment in storytelling. And I like to ask those kinds of questions because we should be aware, listen, there's not going to be any danger of people creating fun, frothy entertainment. Nobody's going to stop doing that. So I think it's important to have other works out there that attempt to deconstruct that or give a different perspective or make us consider other potential kinds of storytelling. And Watchmen, for sure. I mean, for the people who love that graphic novel, they like it. It's incredibly sophisticated. It's a very long form. But one of the things that it's really doing is taking a jab at the American iconography of these superheroes.
Right.
And, I think it's worth at least exploring, because especially when it's a multi-billion-dollar international industry. Why is that the case? I don't know. Why not ask the question? Yeah.
I've got my Deadpool cufflinks on. So,
there you go. Deadpool is a perfect example.
So I can't argue against that. All right, let's get some questions. What we got here? Right over here.
We got microphones on either side.
Okay. Oh, so we're going to go up to the microphone, or we could actually repeat the question also for you folks. Go say it, and I'll repeat it for you. Oh, you want to go to the microphones? Okay.
Oh, there is a microphone out there. I say gotcha.
I don't know if I can reach it. Oh, wait.
There we go.
All right, here we go. So my question is kind of two parts. Number one, you've over the course of your career gotten to work with a number of amazing actors. You mentioned Dennis Hopper, Donald Sutherland, Tom Wilkerson, Annette Bening, on and on and on. Is there anyone in particular, kind of outside your formal training, that you ended up looking to as a mentor or teacher, and in what manner? And did there come a point in time when you went, holy crap, shoes on the other foot, the student has now become the teacher, and you felt like you were in that role in any particular movie?
Well, I mean, I definitely thought I was the teacher when I was younger. I'm now old enough to realize what an ass I was. Life has a way of humbling you, you know. And I think that was part and parcel because of the opportunities that I was giving, and I felt like I needed to lead the way, even though I wasn't quite prepared for it. But there were a number of people that I looked up to, not the least of which Meryl Streep and Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro. I came out of that, you know, watching Paul Newman movies and Jane Fonda and Jack Lemmon and Sidney Poitier, and you know, there was a whole group of people who were making interesting, entertaining, socially conscious movies in the realm of realism, and that style of acting to me was really effective. So I always looked up to them, and I got a chance to work with William Hurt one time on a HBO movie based on the book Too Big to Fail, about the deconstruction of Wall Street. And between action and cut, I've never seen anybody with as vivid a skill set as he has. And it's the intelligence that he has and the work that he does in preparation is admirable. And I recently had the chance to work with Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and an actor named Shuler Hensley. The four of us did a production of Waiting for Godot and a Harold Pinter play called No Man's Land in repertory on Broadway. So the four of us did both plays, and we would do half the week one play, the other half the week the other play, and on Wednesdays and Saturdays you could come see us do both. And to watch Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart on stage was an incredibly exotic experience. I don't know, there's no way to, I couldn't have dreamed up doing Beckett and Pinter on Broadway with those guys in repertory when I was in acting school if I had tried. So I have had a wealth of those opportunities, and I really look up to those actors. And you know what? They have tenacity too. They have they don't give up on their careers or their parts. Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart doing 8 shows a week, where they're on stage the lion's share of the time, is badass. I mean, that is, to me, yeah. That is superlative, hard, grinding work. And they do it because they know it's the best possible exploitation of their resources, and they're not going to take it for granted. And I think anybody who has those opportunities has a responsibility to not take it for granted. And there's a guy named Jonathan Tucker who played the young version of me in Sleepers. And the two of us have maintained contact over the years. So he's about the only person that I think I've ever had any kind of mentoring or conscious mentoring.
But now what about, like, say, Stanford Prison Experiment, where you had like a host of young actors?
Yeah, I for sure thought I was going to be the mentor in that, and then I saw it and I was like, oh no, they're the ones who are kick-ass. Like, I'm doing everything. I mean, those guys, they were on fire. They didn't, they sure as hell didn't need any help from me. And actually, Michael Angarano was he was the boy in Almost Famous at the beginning. So it was great to get to work with him again. And Ezra Miller was spectacular. Johnny Miller, I mean, the number of young actors in that Yeah, they don't need any help from old Bill.
Okay, next question. Who we got? Okay, so we need, oh, we got somebody at the mic already.
Thank you for your question.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Two of my favorite films of all time are Stage Beauty and Dedication.
Wow.
And Dedication specifically has a really special part in my heart and my sister's, who's right up there, because we watched that film when she brought her son home from the hospital, and he's on the autism spectrum, and that character we have come to visit over and over and over the years, and he's 9 years old now, so just wanted to know about your preparation for that film and any research that you did for the role.
Well, thank you for your question and for your dedication to those movies, no pun intended, because not many people have seen those, and they were parts that I was extremely grateful to get and stories that I thought were really worth telling. And Dedication was directed by Justin Theroux, who was one of my closest friends. We lived next door to each other in New York. And we were in a play together. We did The Three Sisters together back in '98 or something, I think, with Paul Giamatti and David Strathairn and Jean Triplehorn. And Justin and I had a very similar ambition. And with that character in particular, we were interested in how you find the humanity and the peace in somebody who sees the world in a chaotic way. They don't know how to organize themselves socially because the noise in their head is so overwhelming. And it was a very difficult task to try to put that in the context of a romantic comedy kind of structure, because it's more of a character study in many respects. But for me, my passion about that character comes from him not giving up. Every fiber in his body is trying to maintain a life in a world that just feels like needles all the time. And I think we've all encountered moments like that are almost unbearable. And so to try to imagine somebody whose life is one relentless state of that is a really, I think, worthwhile story to tell. And I can remember I was dating somebody at the time, and then we split up, and she saw the movie afterwards, and she said, "Oh my God, no wonder you were so much trouble during that." Because being in that character and living in the space of somebody who sees the world as an assault is a very heartbreaking, experience. And so I have, that's near and dear to my heart as well.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's next question. And in fact, if we're waiting, oh, great. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, Ellie. My name is Sandra, and my question is, you talked about portraying unlikable characters and showing that humanity. What character has really stayed with you, and why?
Fuckhead. In part because of his clumsy hopefulness, when that tattoo comes to life, and it's sort of backlit with golden rays, there's something really touching to me about finding that in your life, and finding that in whatever small experiences you have in your relationships, in your work, in your children. Despite all of the awfulness in life, all of the knives in your eye parts of life. That was, by the way, Dennis Johnson, the writer of the book, who had yeah, he was desperate to play that part. That one was, to me, that's something to aspire to, to try to find enough peace in your inner life that you can appreciate the constant stream of beauty and surprise around you in your experience of humanity, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right behind her. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Stephen. I have two questions. I'm used to seeing in roles of men that are conflicted about their past or past mistakes. And now you're going to be in Alien and League of Justice. So what are you going to be playing in those movies? And also, are you nervous about the remake of Alien? Do you have nightmares of Sigourney Weaver looking at you or judging you or things like that?
Well, they're not nightmares, I can assure you. When Sigourney Weaver's in my dreams, everything's good. That Alien, the nightmares I have. One of my closest friends is Sam Rockwell, who's an actor who I hope all of you know. And he is an extraordinary fan of Ridley Scott and of Alien in particular. And the pressure I feel is living up to that.
To Sam's expectations?
To Sam's expectations. Sam and his mom. And they occupy such a vivid part of my own childhood that you want to be able to create one of the characters that Ian Holm created, Bill Paxton created, Sigourney Weaver created, Tom Skerritt created. All of these people have endeavored to create really interesting and memorable figures in this long, I don't know, I think he's turning it into a kind of a creation myth, telling the story of why we create stories through the eyes of AI. So if we create artificial intelligence, do they look at us as their gods? Are they busy there in their computer creating, the Greek gods out of us? And what happens if they then create? Will they have the interest in creating things themselves? I think that's kind of what Ridley is kind of after. I wish I could tell you more than that. As long as we're not recording this, right?
No, just amongst us.
I am sworn to secrecy about almost all of it. I do play a member of the crew, and I can't. Let me think what I can say. It's probably good that I should think about this. But the first Alien is a mining expedition, and so you sort of suppose that people are already in space and they're exploiting the resources of other planets and stars. And this is a colonizing mission, so it predates the mining mission, where people are escaping Earth to start new colonies and other planets. And needless to say, not everything goes as planned. Yeah, check it out.
Okay, all right, fine.
In Justice League.
We tried. All right. Okay, Justice League.
In Justice League, I play Barry Allen's father, and Barry Allen is the Flash. Though, if there's any fans of the Flash here, you'll know that what I just said is totally not true, too, because there's a million. Do you have the Flash shirt on? Yeah. Okay. See, you know what I'm talking about. There's like a million different iterations, and there's multiple universes, and so in some cases, the character I play is a Flash in another universe, so I can't really say anything about that either.
Well, here's the thing.
But it's cool. They're both pretty cool.
Well, you're reunited with Ezra.
Yes, that was awesome.
And working with Zach again.
Yes, Zach is a real prince and a joy to work with, and he's somebody who also has incredible ambitions and is incredibly humble too. So he'll do these long, vivid, complicated takes, and at the end of it, you're sweating and breathless, and you're like, "How was that? What did you think?" And he's like, "Yeah, pretty cool." I don't know. We'll see. And you're like, "Oh God, no, I was hoping for something." Let me just no, everything's fine. I thought it was pretty cool. What'd you think? You think it was cool? No, man, I didn't think it was cool. I'm terrified. Did you see how much money you just spent on that? But so working with him is it's a real kick.
I think we're gonna have time for like one, maybe two questions. But really quickly, when you're working like that, and there's so much green screen and so much stuff that's going on that we put in after you, how difficult is that? When they're going, yeah, over there is this thing, and these two little tennis balls is actually this thing, and you've got to make it all work so when they do plug all that stuff in, it works. How much does that suck?
Well, you have to come very prepared with your own storytelling. So you have to have in your mind constructed what happens in the scene and be able to sort of make a projection for yourself onto that. Barring that, you just look at the tennis ball and pretend it's an alien. I mean, you really go straight back to being a kid and like, I'm just gonna pretend. I'm throwing realism out the window now, and I am just gonna straight up do my best pretending job.
So Bill Macy sidles up to you and go, you gotta fake
100%, fake this one.
it. You gotta fake this one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I think do we have somebody ready?
Cool.
Go.
Billy, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
In 2005, I saw you play in The Pillow Man with Jeff
Oh.
Goldblum and Michael Stahlberg, and like completely blew me away. I was like a young actor out of high school. I just wanted to know if you like wanted to talk about that production at all, because it just completely changed. Like
I almost want to talk about nothing but that production because that was a seminal moment for me too. I remember reading the first 3 pages. This is a play by Martin McDonagh, who's gone on to make some really interesting movies as well.
Yeah,
but he is a spectacular playwright with a singular voice. And that play came up, and I read the first 3 pages, and I said, I don't know what this is about, but I have to be in it. I've never seen dialogue like this. It was meant to take place in sort of an Eastern European gulag kind of environment where somebody's being interrogated for a murder, and you don't know exactly what's happening, and one of his brother is involved, and he goes about telling the story of how he and his brother arrived at this moment by use of stories that he wrote as a child for his brother, because he's been taking care of his brother for all of his life. And the stories are the most disturbing and macabre things you've ever heard in your life. And they are then displayed and acted out behind you in tableau with actors up on this big pedestal. And they're terrifying stories. And I've never had the experience in the theater where I got to be so manipulative, so blindly manipulative, because I was the storyteller, and you can feel when the audience was on the edge of their seats, and you can take as much time as you want and be as destructively manipulative as you can, and it was an absolute thrill. And if any of you ever get a chance to see that play, you will never forget it. And it turns out, actually, just for a little bit of trivia, those stories, if you remember from the play, Martin actually wrote those when he was a teenager and developed The Pillow Man as a way just to get his stories in a play. So he's a pretty sick, twisted man.
thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, you're going to wrap this thing up. Let's hear it.
All right. Thank you for your role in Spotlight.
Oh, thank you.
I think that was a character that's humanity came out in the end with the decision he had to make. But I know you were talking about not wanting people to get, or the press, to know too much about your personal life, but actors have an ability to bring a light to causes. And I was wondering if you have a preferred charity or a cause that's important to you that is something that you're involved with or that you would want to give notoriety to because of your position, you know, being an actor in the public?
That's a really great question. It is one that that I think I've struggled with for a while for exactly those reasons, which is that I didn't have an intention to be a public advocate for anything. I had an intention to be a storyteller. But when you begin to have some agency to draw people's attention to something, it's hard to turn your back on it. And there's an organization that I've been working with in New York City for about 20 years called the 52nd Street Project, which was developed over 30 years ago by a theater producer and director who noticed the divide in Hell's Kitchen between this incredible economic engine, which was Broadway, and the impoverished kids that lived there that had no connection to it whatsoever. So his idea was to start an after-school program for kids in need. That was a 6-week playwriting program, and then they would get professional actors and directors to come in and do their play. And so I have played everything. Well, the last thing I played was a pencil. That was about a month ago, and that was a play about social justice. I think it was a pretty radical play. Before that, I played a possum who was a travel agent named Chulu, and Chulu had gotten some misinformation that the Hood was a great destination. So he was going to the Hood to scope it out for his clients, and is horrified to discover when he gets to the Hood that it is a place of poverty and crime, and it has been an extraordinary experience for most of my life, most of my working life, to get to work with these kids. And you know, the truth is, at a certain point, it becomes super selfish because the parts that I get there are unlike any other parts that I get here. So I really look forward to playing them. But there's another organization called City Harvest in New York City that tries to utilize all the food resources we have in restaurants and deliver them to people in need. So those are a couple that are near and dear to my heart.
Thank you so much for answering that.
Oh,
Well,
sure.
it's an awesome way to end it. Everyone, Billy Crudup, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hey, thanks so much, man.
Absolutely,
Appreciate
man. That was great fun.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.